There's never a dull day. There's never a dull morning before we go live for a crowdcast. I have to just say, Ruth, that was a classic. Good morning, everybody.
Press the right button. Good morning, everybody.
That's how we've got me properly chuckling. Good morning, everybody. It is 9:30. We are in May. It rained last night for the first time in a very long time, so everybody's feeling happy, aren't we?
Really?
My garden looks a lot better.
My garden looks better.
It didn't rain where I was, so no. We're not going to have a conversation about the weather, surely.
And it's what us Brits talk about.
Yeah.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to you. Those of you who are new to our Be Career Confident family, really delighted to have you on board. And for those of you who have been regulars over the last 18 months or so as part of Be Career Confident, for many of you, you'll know that over the last period of time, every Thursday and now once a month, we get together and we talk about what is happening in the market, what current issues do we need to explore. We are a team of careers coaches, HR professionals, recruiters who come together to share our expertise, to give insights, to bounce ideas off, to debate. Sometimes the subjects are quite heated, aren't they, Ruth?
Yes.
Diplomatically. And today, really responding to what we felt was a very obvious need, we wanted to have a book club. We wanted to have a pause and have an opportunity to really talk about where we get lots of our knowledge, which bits we found really helpful for us, which bits we've used in our coaching, which bits we've used in our personal lives, which bits we've been able to recommend. Because our job as careers coaches to be able to support you, whether that's a business, an individual, a school, an academic institution, it's to encourage you to make an educated decision around all matters to do with whether that's your career or whether that's your pupil's career or your employee's career. So it's educated decisions. So reading is a big part of what we're expected to do, whether that's us ourselves, whether that's us talking to friends who read, whether that's listening to podcasts, listening to crowdcasts, you name it. So today we're just going to really come and talk about that element of learning, aren't we? We'll call it book club, but actually should we call it learning club, Ruth? Is that a better one?
Yeah. Because there's three quite different people on this crowdcast. Gosh, gone back to last year when we did crowdcast on our LinkedIn Live, and we all approach this differently. And I think that's the thing that I've learned. I'm you've seen in the promo stuff, I'm the one that struggles to read. Yeah, let's get this out of the way first. The books that get told for me is, Ruth, are you reading Spot? Has he found the ball yet? It's that sort of level for me that I struggle. And when we were talking about this, I think I realized that I did link books and reading to school, which was a bit that I struggled with. And then I've used reading as an escapism, but have found it still hard to go back into an educational piece. So I'm the one that probably struggles the most in this group. And we've got Gary who eats them, and who I will go to. I will go, and this is what I found. If I go to him, because I know he's probably read it, and he'll tell me whether it's the right thing to read or not. And then Charlotte, you just have a very interesting array of stuff to read and what you learn. So yeah, I think we wanted to do this just to try and look at everybody's angle of how they look at reading and what they learn. So we're going to share what we've got on our bookshelves. Please pop in any comments or chat of books that you think might be good that we need to read. So should we start with why read? Gary.
Okay.
Gary's the reader.
Yeah, morning everybody. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Gary Simpson, and I'm a recruiter, I'm a coach, I'm an interim HR director, and essentially spend my life talking to people, which is all good fun. But most of the time, all I want to do, really, to be fair, is to shut myself away in a room and leave everybody else and sit and read a book, because I'm antisocial and all the rest of it. To be fair, when Ruth and Charlotte both sort of floated the idea of book club, I thought that we were going to be sort of, here's this month's book, here's what we're reading, and making recommendations. But the comments earlier about learning club, or as far as I'm concerned, CPD, continuous personal development club, that's more interesting to myself, and I don't want people to get hung up about they should be reading X amount of pages a day of whatever business book. What I want people to embrace really is that they should be learning something every day. So go to bed smarter than when you were when you woke up. It's as simple as that.
That's good.
That's
good.
And I don't mind how you learn. You can learn from written books. You can learn from Kindles, audio books, which are a big favourite of mine, in all fairness. You can listen to proper podcasts, or proper newspapers. And I've had a failed experiment over the last sort of 6 months, where I've been trying to make myself read the Financial Times every day. And it's just not sticking, and I can't do it, and I've stopped my subscription. So quickly, why read? Right, Warren Buffett, for those of you who don't know, Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger are the two leaders of Berkshire Hathaway, which at one point they were the richest people in the world. Obviously, Bezos has now overtaken him because he sells us books. But even though Warren Buffett is in his 90s, I think the guy's 93 or 94, he still reads 500 pages a day, which is a lot, obviously.
A lot.
And he's got this little quote that sort of readers are leaders and leaders are readers, which another little snippet for you. And essentially, his big thing is that he likes to do research. It expands his mind. It enables him to put 2 and 2 together and make that 4. There's an article there that Ruth will put in the sort of show notes sort of thing, and I do recommend that you read that. But why would I recommend reading, or why would I recommend continuous personal development? It just makes you into a more rounded person. Quite often when I meet somebody for the first time, and I probably did this to Ruth when we met 10 or 12 years ago, and I just said, what are you reading at the moment? And I use it as a filter. That sounds awful, I know, but I do use it as a filter. When people do say, Ruth was even more attractive than she is now. So I was going
to say, I'm surprised we've developed a friendship, because I can't imagine what the answer to that question.
Well, I think I said that, and you said, I'm reading the menu and I want a cheese sandwich. That was probably it. But yeah, I use it as a filter, in all fairness. I like to know that the people I surround myself, because you guys and everyone listening to this have heard this little thing before, that as a person, I know I am a sum of the people that I hang around with, the things that I read, the things that I learn, and essentially, the activities that I carry out. Yeah. So if I surround myself with bright people like Ruth and Charlotte, and I surround myself with the greatest minds in the world through either books or podcasts, then you got to hope that I'm going to become a better person. It's as simple as that.
So I'm going to, I think also that you can learn in a slightly different way. And just thinking about it, the jobs that we do, we read a lot of CVs, a lot of job descriptions, and we read a lot about organizations. And actually, my learning around organizations, people, development has probably come not from a book in the early days, but from reading about organizations and how they're doing things and people's careers. And it probably comes into, again, reflecting. I quite like a good biography, because I like to read about what somebody's done and what their experiences were. Charlotte's pondering.
And my brain's going. This is a topic I feel really, really proud to encourage people to do, I suppose. Is that the right expression? I was on a conference last night, and there was something somebody said that was it's really resonated. It says, we were talking about finding voice and finding particularly women within a male-dominated sector, which is a sector that I was supporting last night. And someone said, that person was gaining confidence and gaining voice through experience.
Gaining voice.
I love that. And if you think about it, we can gain our confidence and things through our own experiences, through our own reading, and through our own kind of day-to-day operations. But if we read other people's experiences, like you're saying, Ruth, we can also gain that. We can gain and learn from their experiences. What's gone wrong for them? Why did that work? What did that? And as Gary said, I love that, Gary. Go to bed more intelligent than you woke up. That's absolutely vital. Whether that's something you've learned about yourself, whether that's something you've learned, whether it's a fact, or whether that's something in an experience that you've discovered more on. So for me, it's about making sure that you keep your eyes open. And that's why I read, is to make sure, because otherwise it's so easy, working mum, busy home life, to go rah, 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 and get stuck on that hamster wheel. And sometimes it's like, right, keep your eyes open to other stuff. And you do have to kind of battle to do it sometimes. But yeah, that's my personal why read. Why learn, maybe more.
Okay, so let me introduce another concept to you then, which anybody watching or listening, if you don't know about compound interest, then essentially at the end of this, then just Google Warren Buffett compound interest and do yourself a favour, and you will be a lot smarter when you go to bed tonight than when you woke up this morning. But essentially, the miracle of compound interest, we've all seen it. You start saving when you're 18 and put £1 away or whatever, you can be a multi-squillionaire by the time you're 60. There's plenty of articles on it, and read it. What I want you to think about is not essentially finance, but brain power and knowledge. Your knowledge compound interests in the same way. So I know if I learn a little each day, and have done for the last 25, 30 odd years, then it's like me dropping £1 into my savings account every day of the week, and that has compounded over time. So now I have, and I learned about this a few weeks ago, now I have lots of crystallized intelligence rather than fluid intelligence. Fluid intelligence is when you're young and you can make decisions quickly. Crystallized intelligence is when you're old, like me. But hey, you know what? It might take me another 5 seconds to make that decision, but I've got it all up here, what I've learned. And I want you to think about learning and the power of compound interest in learning. If you do 10 pages a day or whatever, half an hour a day, it doesn't really matter. I'm not going to try and set people a target for that, and we can talk about that later. But if you do a little bit each day, I can assure you by the end of the 6 months, year, or in my case, 25, 30 years, you will be a lot brighter person. It's as simple as that.
Like that.
There you are, you see, folks. You've got 3 very different people coming at it from 3 very different angles.
But I think
the thing is the same.
Yeah, but also I think it's very evident that we all learn from each other.
Yeah.
In different ways. And if we think about it from this learning club, which I love, we do learn. So I will always, Gary will be the person that I know will have read something and will have some hard facts about it. But I also know that Gary will pick up the phone to me and ask for an opinion on something in the opposite way, because we're wired differently. So if we think about how and when do we read then? Is there good times? Is there good ways? What are your thoughts on the best ways of digesting a book? Should we go with the how first?
Okay, I've got a system, as you might imagine. And all right, so my system essentially is I start with audiobooks. It's as simple as that. And for those of you who don't know, the reason I have all these calluses is that I'm a very keen rower. And why am I doing that? and I have a rower outside, and essentially I'm quite happy to sit on there for 60, 90, 120 minutes or whatever, and to be able to fend off the boredom, because it is pretty boring. I'm more than happy to listen to an audible book at 1.5 or even 2 speed. And I know that sounds weird, but that's the way it is. I will also, and I'll have my phone nearby, and I'm going to tell you why in a minute. And I will also listen to it in the car. I mean, there's a Zig Ziglar quote about being cars being the greatest university in the world, because you can sit there for hours on end and learn stuff. The issue with that is, obviously, at the end of the 60 minutes, I won't have remembered everything that whoever has been speaking at sort of 1.5 speed or even 2 speed gets. But what I can do is say, "Hey, lady in a tube," or whatever, Apple equivalent. I won't say it out loud. Make a note to remember X. And if you say that in my car, if I'm listening to something, I say, "Hey, Siri, remember to look up X, whatever it is," or I repeat what I've just heard and say, "You heard this fact at 30 minutes on X book," then I can go back to that later and research that and look at it. So part of the problem we all have, and I know you listen to your books in the car, Ruth, is that you'll get to your destination, you'll think, "Oh, I quite enjoyed that." Oh, and I'm not knocking you, because we all do it. You need to make notes. Clearly, you can't be sitting there whilst you're driving doing that. Make a quick audio note, and then you can go back at the end of the day. It takes 5 minutes to look that up. Next stage for me, either after that, is if I think it's a great book, and look, you know what, most of the books that I read or listen to don't get anywhere near this stage, is that I'll either have it in hardback, and I'm going like that because I've got a bookcase behind me, or on Kindle. Kindle, you can make notes and you can export those into Evernote very, very easily. And as far as hard books are concerned, about 10 books a year make it through the whole. Send it to, and there's a place, and I'll happily put it in the show notes at some point. There is a place just outside London that you can send your books directly to. They will scan them in. It will come back a Word or a PDF type document. Why the hell would I want to do that? I hear you say, well, it's really easy to make notes and make your own thoughts. And we're going to go through why you want to read syntopically later. But it's really easy to do that when you've got 100,000 words from the author in a Word document. And that costs about 20 quid. It's not exactly a lot.
Okay. Charlotte?
How to read.
Yeah, how are you?
Differently, depending on different time of day. So I was talking about running train session yesterday in the morning for a group of youngsters as they're looking at making decisions for A-levels. And we were talking about learning styles and understanding our learning styles, whether with kinesthetic learning, visual, auditory, you name it. And I definitely know that at different times of day, I learn in a different way. And I can retain information in a different way. So in the morning, Gary, well, both of you know that I love the Daily Stoic. I love it. It's short, it's succinct, it's direct. It sets the tone. It gives me something to think about during the day. It maybe gives me something to ground myself a little bit on. It sounds a bit woo-woo, this, doesn't it? But it's, you know, I like that structure. I'm not going to profess to reading it every day because life is super busy and, you know, something else might have come in that means that I can't. But it's my preferred method to have something to read that's short and concise first thing in the morning. I always read before bed. Always. I just love half an hour. If my husband's watching, darling, it's definitely half an hour. I don't fall asleep after 3 pages, I promise. In an ideal world, I'd read for half an hour. But I definitely pick up my book and I read a certain amount of pages before bed every night. But I find my evening books, they're more to do with my home life. And I love a visual image I'm not reading picture books, but I need visual images to help me rather than picking up reading. So I tend to read more around farming books, around cooking books, around homesteading books in the evening because of those visuals, as well as the texts around them, because I feel my brain is tired at that point. And for the information to be taken in, I have to change my reading style. So The how. Love a podcast, love a story tape. When we tend to go on holidays in the car, so everyone gets packed in. So if we have a 14-hour drive, you can definitely get through some good story tapes in the car, and pick up. But I also love podcasts for book recommendations.
Yeah.
So I would, and that's when, Gary, like you said, I would quite often say, remember this, or even, if whoever's driving, the person who's not driving will pick up Amazon and just put that book in the basket, just to remember to go back and research that book later, because it'll stay there for as long as it is until you take it out. So yeah, that's very. What about you, Ruth?
Yeah, very different. Very different. Podcasts. Like a podcast. Like listening to an interview. I've just realised it's definitely people orientated. So an interview. So on YouTube at the moment, Zach Brown, Formula One, did a TED talk at Oxford University. That is on my YouTube to listen or watch, whichever way. I walk a fair bit, so I've started now listening to them more as I'm walking. I did fall out of love with that because I realised that when I was walking, I wasn't enjoying the groundness of being out in the fresh air and taking in the environment. So I have to balance it a little bit so I can go all or nothing. So today I'll probably go for a walk and I won't have the audiobook on because I want to enjoy being outside. Can't read before I go to sleep, and absolutely no way. I can probably do a page and I'll be asleep. So it just doesn't work for me. Doesn't work for me at all. But I think in the technology arena that we're in at the moment, and going back to this is all is about how we learn. I think there's so many snippets, and that's why it's great to sort of to share. So let's start sharing what we're reading and why we're reading, because I think this will be a bit of an eye opener of what we're doing. And Gary, you've got quite a list of stuff, and you read the most. I'm going to come to you first.
Okay.
What? Sorry.
Well, I can tell you that Spot finds the ball.
Does he?
Yeah, I'm sorry to spoil your. Sorry to spoil the story for you. So yeah, I mean, I use a variety of resources to try and find. My biggest issue is trying to find something to read, if I'm truthful with you, because Audible only has a certain amount of recommendations, and so does Amazon and all the other good things. I use Derek Sivers. I use the Bookworm podcast a lot to try and find things to read. I do read the Financial Times webpage, but that's a different thing. And they always every month have business books and all the rest of it. So I have to say that me personally, if you was to look at my bookcase, it's full of business books and personal development. Some of it's a bit woo-woo.
Just tell me about Derek Sivers again, because I know you have, but I've forgotten.
Right, so Derek Sivers is some American guy that's read about 500 books, and he makes notes, and he sort of he gives them a sort of mark out of 10. And I find that his view on the world and his view on a good book and mine are broadly similar. So I would trust. So if something comes out and he rates that 8, 9 or 10 out of 10, I'm going to be looking at that.
Okay.
And some of the books that he rates 8, 9 and 10 out of 10 are, for me, some of the best books I've ever read. I read a lot of books on Stoicism as well, like Charlotte, and he introduced me to that, to be fair. The pair of us are Stoics together, in all fairness. And if I can encourage people to read books on Stoicism, then my job is done as far as I'm concerned. So I look at that stuff as far as Derek Sivers is concerned. But I try and read a book a week, but in truth, I end up usually about 30 new books a year and about 20 rereads. Because quite often I'll listen to something relatively quickly. I can be on the rower for 4 or 5 hours a week, no problem at all. So if I'm on there 5 hours a week at 1.5 speed, that's 7.5 hours. I've knocked a book out the park straight away. That's no problem at all.
So what's been the books that come to mind that you're like, that book, and I would go back and read that again and again?
Okay, so in the last 12 months, and so I looked at this week's Sunday Times bestsellers list, and there's 4 or 5 in the top 10 that I've read. So I'd go to Atomic Habits. I mean, and I've talked about that on this show before now. Anyone in coaching who would think about Why Has Nobody Told Me This Before by Julie Smith, I think that's number 1 at the moment in the Sunday Times. You can get that for £7 off Amazon. That is well worth reading for anybody who's looking at coaching, or anybody who's doing coaching now, or anybody who just wants to understand themselves a little better. I don't generally read too many of the classic business books, simply because I had to do them back in the 90s before we had the internet for my MBA. But I mean, for those out there who are in business now that have never read any of the formal business books like Good to Great by Jim Collins or whatever, then what I would say is look at Harvard HBR, usually HBR reads, or Harvard Business Review, and they'll list the top 20 business books you should read, and pick and choose from there, really. And even though some of those could be 20, 30, even 40 or 50 years old, they've got some good things in there. At the moment, I'm, as weird as this sounds, and look, you both know I'm a big planner, because, hey, I know you've heard this, plans are useless, but planning is everything. That's General Eisenhower's little quote. I like to work out where I'm going to be, and at the moment, I'm preparing for my 60s. I'm 60 next year, and I want to prepare for that decade. And I've done myself a sort of mind map, and these are the things that I want to learn over the next sort of 12 months to prepare myself for the best. So at the moment, I'm reading lots of books on brain health, and there's a great book called 7.5 Lessons About the Brain. There's a great book called Brain Rules by John Medina, and I'm looking at that, and I can say that, yeah, my reading list is pretty weird and pretty eclectic and pretty skewed to one side. I only read non-fiction. I only read personal development. That's not to say we should all do that. But I'll happily post a list of the things that I've written the last 12 months that I love.
So that's enlightening. Thinking about where you want to be in the next year, and then planning backwards what you then want to learn.
So we spoke about that before, future casting or future you or something like that. And we did speak about that about a few months ago on here, like, and yeah, I mean, we as HR professionals or career coaches or whatever, we are, well, I do anyway, I'm sure you two do as well. I often sit down with a candidate and say, where do you want to be in 5 years' time? What a stupid question that is. But where do you want to be in 5 or 10 years' time? Then look at where they are, what you need to get there, and then work back in incremental steps.
Yeah.
None of this is rocket science.
No, but it's strange, isn't it? I've never thought about it on that from a learning and a book point of view, and I like that. Somebody's put a great comment in here, so I've never heard of this, but Room Research is a great app to capture notes from books. Ever heard of that?
Rome is great. So's Obsidian.
Room
Research, Obsidian, Notion, and I've got a book, and whoever's put that in there, I've got a book on order now for June by a chap called Tiago Forte about building a second brain. And I've spoke to you two independently about Zettelkasten and building a second brain. Rome Research is a great place to capture notes from books without doubt. And AI links them all together, and you can build essentially a second brain. It's a full-time job, though, if you're not careful. And that's a rabbit hole I don't want to go down. Whoever made that note, what I use personally is tags, and I'll happily talk to somebody offline about that. But that's how I join my notes and get my joined up thinking together. We need, before we go today, to talk about definitely how to read syntopically and how to get the best out of your books. And Rome Research is a great
Go.
Right.
Go.
Okay.
Talk about it. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, there are 4 levels to reading. Basic reading, basic reading and comprehension. Basic reading plus being able to have an opinion on it. Basic reading, having an opinion, and then coming up with alternative opinions. And then the hardest being reading syntopically. And what that means is read, and I've been doing this on brain health. My dad passed away last year from dementia. I didn't want to go down that route. And so I've been reading on brain health as you hit your middle age and your 60s. And what I did was I gathered lots of books on brain health from different authors with differing views to each other. And then I made notes on all of those and like to think that I've got the best from each one, whether it's exercise, taking nootropics, eating magic mushrooms, whatever else weird and wonderful things some of these Americans have got. But yes, I use tags, not Rome Research, but yeah, Rome Research would be a brilliant place to keep all those. So reading syntopically means that you get a range of books on a particular subject that you're interested in. It doesn't have to be business. I know Charlotte has got books on pH soil samples or whatever at some point. I know she has, and I don't know, cattle and sheep and goats and all the rest of it. But she will learn from different places, and then she will form her own opinions, and then she will make a little A4 thing that's saying, my goats should have X, Y, and Z. It sounds like I'm being silly, but anybody who's listening to this, I'm hoping that you go, oh yeah, I could have that about X, the hobby that I'm interested in. But I would certainly say that yes, get into reading, yes, get into learning, but then yes, think, right, how can I crystallize that intelligence? How can I make myself, like learning an exam, you're not going to be examined on it, but research that so that I know about that topic. Then, moving further on, there's something called the Feynman technique. Again, I know I spoke to both of you about this. I often say to people, explain to me like I'm 5.
Yeah.
In simple terms. And the Feynman technique is that, essentially, that you would read some books, you would get some opinions, and then somebody could ask you, tell me about the pH, in my soil if I want to grow wheat, and you would be able to, Charlotte, be able to explain it to me like I was 5. But behind that, you've read up lots of stuff.
So Charlotte.
Gary, and I think it's a very, very good way of putting it, and just kind of going back a little bit about you talking about where you want to be 60 plus. In every other walk of life, if we want to do something, fine, you want to train for a marathon, so you plan it. You want to go on a holiday, you plan it. Everything else you plan. And thankfully, I'm from a family of academics mainly, who, when they want to do something or learn something, they would, exactly as Gary said, buy a suite of books, read as much as you can, and formulate an own opinion, or kind of challenge and learn to find your own path through that. Likewise, we are quite a practical family, which means that when you want to learn a new skill to use your hands, you have to learn properly. You can't wing it because it's dangerous. So you have to go to textbooks to learn, but I don't mean textbooks. Sometimes that is one method and one means of learning, like YouTube these days.
I was thinking that, yeah.
That's why I'm glad we've called this or coined it Learning Club, because learn from any method, whichever is, suitable. But Gary, I really like that, and I like the fact that you said, right, okay, who am I and who do I want to be going forward, and go back to a style of learning that you like, which is through reading. So yeah, I think it's phenomenal, and I am reading a huge amount, as Gary laughs, in terms of all that. Whether it's animals, whether it's farming, whether it's life, and actually, so on my bookcase, I have Alan Savory's Holistic Management book. Why have I got it? Because obviously it is around farming, but holistic management is a technique of management that can be used for business, it can be used for personal life, it can be used for family life, it can be used for all sorts. And it's a book that I'm using for my home, for home farm, but I'm also using it because it's helping me phenomenally as an individual, but also for work and for the coaching work that we do. So that's an excellent one that's been on. And it's just Alan Savory. If any of you have an understanding of the Savory Institute, you will know he's very well respected and renowned in that world, around globally. I don't read a huge amount of fiction, but I have read a book recently that I loved, and I'm going to maybe a little controversially talk about it, but I absolutely loved it. And it's Where the Crawdads Sing. I don't know if any of you have heard it. It's a slight coming of age book. It's a book of cultural diversity. It's a book of, there are some tough socioeconomic issues in it. There's a lot about nature in it. For me, it's a very raw book, and I really, really loved it. So have a look at that. It's called Where the Crawdads Sing. If you have, and you could read it, if you're an avid reader, you could read it probably in 2-3 days. If you're somebody who likes a story tape, it would make a really, really good story tape. So yeah, have a look at that. The other ones that I put on here, digital minimalism, I'd always go back to. Everybody knows I've always ranted about it. I love it. I love the methods in it. It's not about not using technology. It's about learning to use technology for good. It's a really good reminder of how positive technology, how positive social media can be, but if they are used correctly and the right way. And there's an underlying reminder of learning to be in your own company again. And for me, I need that sometimes. I love people, but sometimes to be reminded it's okay to be on your own, to be in your own space. And that's really, I love that. What other books did I put on there? Oh, so I've got 2 that I want to read. One called Grounded by Erin McMorrow, who was a very successful American businesswoman who actually burnt out, then wanted to, give it all up and go and be a yoga teacher. And she didn't become a yoga teacher. She actually became somebody who specializes in soil health and soil health, ecosystems, how everything fits together, balance. I love it because, again, it's from business to farming to balance to mental health to well-being to all of that lot. So I'm really excited about that. And I've still had Wim Hof's book sitting on my cupboard for a long time. And I was like, oh, Wim Hof, do I really want to read it? I've turned his telly program on the other night, and I've not been watching it, and I watched it, and I was like, actually, what you're saying is really good. And I like Gary. I liked the power of the mind and being able to train your mind. So I'm feeling that I probably ought to read it. So those are
Do you mind if I just jump in? And I'm sorry. Right, 2 things. Firstly, Wim Hof. If you want to read his book, that's fine. I'll listen to it. There's a better book though out there by a chap called Scott Carney, who went through the Wim Hof method. It's called The Wedge, and he documented how he went up Kilimanjaro. That is far, far better. But I got to a point 2 years ago when I was sitting in ice baths and doing 20-minute meditation. So I'm up for that, definitely. Cal Newport, anything by him is brilliant, but also Greg McKeown. And I want to here's a tip I want to say to people. Greg McKeown has wrote 2 books, Effortless and Essentialism. But one of the tips he gives out is knowing when to be done. And I think what worries people is, reading or learning is a bit like going to the gym. And start next Monday, can't wait. And then on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, you go to the gym and you do all this and you do everything. And then by Thursday, you're absolutely bloody knackered and you don't go back for 6 months. Result. And learning can be like that. Oh, I'm gonna be a bookworm. I'm going to read 200 pages a day or whatever. And you get to you do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, you learn. And by Thursday, your head is like this and you're away. Greg McKeown, and this was a great idea for me because I'm very much an all or nothing type of bloke. Greg McKeown came up with this thing and say, right, okay, have a lower limit and an upper limit to everything you do. And to stop myself from reading books for 3 hours a day or whatever, I have an upper and a lower limit where I say, right, okay, half an hour of learning a day is fine, yeah? But anything over an hour and a half, that's just too much. Mm-hmm. And you keep yourself in that, and in that way, you don't do too much. Now, your mileage may vary. You can pick up however minutes a day you want. That's not a problem. I'm not going to sort of prescribe that to you. But I do want people to think, right, if I just do 10 minutes a day, but no more than half an hour because I don't want to get turned off by it all, that'll be okay. And you can increase it over time at that point. But don't be tempted to just go full, guns blazing into learning as much as you can, because I can tell you now, just like going to the gym and doing bench pressing for 3 days, by the time Thursday or Friday come along, you'll be too tired and too fed up to do anything else.
How do you get most fit, Gary? Little bit often, they say.
Yeah. On the rower, that's the unswimming is the only way. But there you go. We'll talk about that in another thing.
That's
But it's I remember you mentioned this to me years ago, and that upper and lower limit in anything that you do, that gives you that consistency to continue and not get burnt out.
1 beer is okay, but 3 beers isn't okay. Is that right, Gary?
I don't touch it full stop.
I know.
I'm one of those boring sort of people. I'm sorry, but yes, because 1 beer's nice, 2 beers are better, 3 beers is not enough, 8 beers is my wife not speaking to me all weekend.
Oh, that's so interesting. Ruth,
Yes.
We need you. What are you reading? We've got 3 minutes.
Okay, so 3 things on the go. Most of you know that I'm in the middle of a dissertation, so unfortunately, and I am a hard book for this because, yeah, I'm doing research in the real world because I need to make notes. So that, unfortunately, is taking a lot of my time. Again, get my feed from everybody else. So somebody in a conversation was talking about 4,000 weeks. Gary, no, I'm really enjoying 4,000 weeks. So people who don't know 4,000 weeks is from Oliver Burkeman. I'd never heard of him before, but he's apparently written a load of other books, and he's somebody who has always been a planner. And I don't think I would have liked his other stuff because it felt very planning. What I like about this 4,000 weeks, and for those who haven't heard it, basically on average we've got 4,000 weeks to live, and that can be a bit depressing if that's the way you want to take it. But when you actually think about, there's no negotiation on this, we can't get any more time, there's only 24 hours in a day. I found his book, although it comes under a time management book, it's more about you looking at your life, grounding yourself and making smart choices. And I'm only 3 chapters in. Gary, thoughts on the book? Did you enjoy it? I know you've read it, so did you enjoy it? Or
I did, and at the same time I read something called Stolen Focus by Johann Hari, and they have similar sort of outlooks on that problem, essentially, that you've only got sort of, well, I'm 3/4 away through my life. Oh my God. Look, that's it. I'm going. I'm sorry. I'm going now. But yeah, I enjoyed it. I mean, I like Oliver Burkeman because he used to write for The Guardian, and I do read newspapers a lot, and I've got a chip on both shoulders. I read The Guardian in the morning and The Times in the afternoon. So yes, I know Burkeman from there, to be fair, but I did quite enjoy that, and it does make you think. To be fair, it really does make you think.
Yeah, so and it just made me realise that I was grounded. I will always read a book when I'm on holiday. That has always been the thing for me. So get on holiday, but it's always a fiction book.
No, and I'm up for that. And sorry, look, Ruth, coming back to you, well, something you wrote to me the other day when you said about some books that you've been reading from your childhood, and this is a nice comment, not a jet. No, I'm not having a go at you, please don't go. But it made me think, and I know I put back to you about Molesworth or whatever. It transported me.
So let's just say, so I basically said there's books that I would want to read again: The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and The Famous Five.
Yeah, and I found myself being transported back to when I was like 10 and 12 or whatever, and I read things like How to Be Top and Down with School by Jeffrey Willens, I think the bloke's name is. And I thought, God, yeah, and I've picked them up since then, and I've ordered that from Amazon because, why not? It makes you think of a time back in your life when, well, look at me, I'm smiling now and laughing.
I was just going to say, look at your, and we're now smiling. And I think that escapism. So there is a learning, but actually even reading fiction is a learning because that's enabling us to switch off.
Well, when Charlotte said earlier about When the Crawdads Sing, and to be fair, that there's a lot, and I'm trying to, there's a top 100 books that you can read, allegedly, and I'm thinking, well, 8 a year in my 60s, as weird as that sounds. But the reason that fiction books like that are good is it enables you, I'm a 60-year-old bloke that grew up in Birmingham, and, and there was Carry On black and white minstrels and all these other things on in the 70s. So clearly I've got a different outlook in life than other people. I'm not saying it's any better. Please don't think I'm trying to say that. But when the crawdads sing and other things like that enables you to see other people's life through their lens, walking a mile in their shoes and say, what was it like to grow up in 1930s America as a person of colour or whatever, and, you read Viktor Frankl's, Man's Search for Meaning, and suddenly you're transported, back to Auschwitz, and that, yes, it's depressing, but ultimately uplifting, and
But it's a learning experience.
Yeah.
Right, we've run out of time. So what we're going to do, because there is loads of things, and there's been loads of book recommendation. It's been brilliant. We will compile a little one pager of the things that we've read, the things that we recommend, and the ways that we learn, and we'll post that on our LinkedIn and our website. So anybody that's watching, we'll get that done this week. Gary, thank you so much. We do have you back for Learning Club, which will be renamed now, and it's been really, really insightful. So thank you so much. Next month, 2nd of June, we've got Fiona Campbell back with us, and that will be exploring equality and diversity in recruitment, and also in team building. So yeah, looking forward to seeing Fiona again. Charlotte, thank you very much. Lovely to see you.
Oh, I feel like we could be here all day. Loved it. Well done. I have taken more notes today than I have done for a very long time. So thank you. My book is covered.
Joined up writing as well. Well done, you.
Learning Club complete.
Thank you both for having me on. It's always a pleasure.
Gary, loved it. Great to see you.
Great to see everybody. Thanks ever so much. Bye.
Bye.